right, here we go on a Thursday night, everybody. So glad to have you back in. Oh, man, is it busy tonight? And only a good thing in the middle of March. March Madness really, truly is ringing in full spirit here on the Gem City Sports Podcast Network. Happy to have you in for our normal Thursday episode. Got a full house in studio tonight. Myself and so many people going to be joining on our stream. But before we get to that, of course, we want to mention that without our sponsor, we would not be here right now. That is Rebish Investments, keeping financial guidance simple. If you want more information, head to our website at Rebish Investments, www.rebishinvestments.com, or you can simply call their phone number during normal business hours at 814-734-3433, 814-734-3433. Rebish Investments, keeping financial guidance simple. Oh, baby, we still got teams left in the state playoffs in the quarterfinal round. We're going to preview and predict all of those games coming up a little bit later in the podcast with Tom Koval. We're going to start with some of the look-backs at how these teams got here in this episode tonight. And Wayne Bradford is joining us back on the podcast tonight because I've got a whole slew of overreaction topics to talk about NFL free agency season. And oh, baby, are they spicy? This guy loves the spicy topics, Mr. Nick Artman. We were laughing before the show. You were trying to get the scoop on my overreaction topics. That's what you were doing.
Well, only because I've known you long enough to know exactly what overreaction topic is coming. Considering the NFL news that has come from specifically the quarterback position in Pittsburgh, I know exactly where you're going, and I wish Paul was here to yell at you.
Well, we'll see, because I don't know. I think you're going to be a little bit surprised with a couple of topics that I have here. But Tom Koval going to join us in just a second. Again, we got so much going on tonight, so thanks again for being with us. You know, as we roll along here, and I think one of the things that is important to talk about as we roll through this episode, Nick, is that of the high school teams that are still in this, I think it's important to talk about the fact that, you know, realistically, everyone still has a chance. And I think that that's something that's really important to think about as we go in this episode. Let's talk about it. Let's start in Class 4A with Cathedral Prep and Sharon. We'll start with the Ramblers. They got a big win in their second round game a couple of nights ago, taking down Grove City 66-44 in what was an all-District 10 matchup. This Rambler team, they're just rolling here.
Listen, you know, even to go back a second and just think, you know, we were talking before the show kicked off, and I'm sitting here, I'm trying to figure out, like, who do I like that's left? Who's got the best bracket left? Yeah. Who had the best path here? And I think you hit the nail on the head. I think up until this point, it's been pretty even. There hasn't been, you know, Sharon maybe has had like you said, had the hardest path forward. But I think, you know, everybody's got a shot here as we're looking moving forward. And I think Cathedral Prep is a good place to start. I mean, they come out and dominate Grove City 66-44 at Edinboro. And really the first, you know, they kind of come out, Grove City kind of came out and smacked Cathedral Prep in the mouth in the first quarter. Yeah. But then the Ramblers came back in the second and never looked away. I mean, they started off, at the end of the first quarter, it was 19-16, but then after that, it blew open to 35-21 in the second, you know, 21-point third quarter, and they just didn't really turn back. But I think what I really liked to see out of the boys Cathedral Prep team at this point is that it wasn't just one person doing all the work. You know, you had 3 or 4 players with double-digit points in this one. They were lights out at the free throw, they struggled at the free throw line, but still were able to kind of pull that win through. So I like what I see from this boys Cathedral Prep team. I think they got to tighten some things up, but looking at that defense and how they reacted at the end of that first quarter, I'm not worried about them coming up against North Catholic here.
Yeah, and that'll be the second seed out of the Whippeal that they'll be playing coming up tomorrow night. And, you know, as I want to bring Tom Koval in here, TK, sorry, I sent you the link late. That's on me, strike number 1. We were talking about Cathedral Prep, TK, and all the high school teams here. And, you know, of course, they've now rolled through the tournament, right? They take down Grove City after what was a disappointing first quarter. But I want to reference what I was talking about with my work colleague, Bob Shreve, who does a lot of the public address announcing. He's been around District 10 for quite some time. And he was PA announcing the game on Tuesday. And the one thing that he said that was really interesting was how great defensively Cathedral Prep's become. We've talked about their offense a lot, and I agree. They have a lot of shooters that can put the ball in the hoop. Amari Horton and Morarki, you know, the list goes on and on, that can shoot from the outside. They were putting up a ton of 3 balls on Tuesday. But when Jordan Fee was coaching Gannon last year, he spent a lot of time also helping Cathedral Prep and Jeremy Lynch kind of figure out different strategies and things like that. And this prep team now, TK, defensively, is to me very similar in the way they play their game to the Gannon team right now. They're very aggressive. They make it difficult on you to put the ball up the floor. And I think Jeremy Lynch has found a really good recipe to make the most out of his team. And I think it's leading to depth. I think it's leading to scoring. And I think it's leading to multiple opportunity. And now at the right time, they're cooking. And realistically, I mean, I'm not saying that they're going to wall up North Catholic, but they've got a really great opportunity to get to the final here with the path they have.
Well, they should. They're a better team than North Catholic. Jeremy definitely has the recipe. I mean, he's got the athletes. You're a Catholic school. You're bringing in kids from different places. They're loaded, especially going down to the 4A. It even gives them more power this year. So the expectation should be high. North Catholic, it had a battle with Bell Vernon and the Whippules. I don't think anyone was really strong out of there. Knock, I think, was probably the better team. They got upset early. So I think Prep's got a really good draw here to get to the next level. Again, it's high school basketball with young kids. You never know what's going to happen. But if I had a really good gut feeling, I would say let's go with Prep.
I don't know what he's eating, but I agree with you.
Well, it's so interesting, too, because, obviously we can talk about the move down to 4A as much as we want. And, there are going to be plenty of people around here that will debate that, some who are on the side of the moving down, some who are not. But I think, I'll raise my hand when I say this. I did not think when Jeremy Lynch took over as head coach that he would be able to do the job that Steve Pietrowicz had done, that other coaches at Cathedral Prep had done. I didn't know if he had the experience. But to his credit, he has done a really good job, I think, of making use of his depth. And we have now seen this prep team, I think, in multiple games be able to figure out ways to use 8-9 guys to rotate in. And whatever class you're in, I think that's impressive. And you look at the 4A bracket now, Sharon sitting there, Berks Catholic on the top half, assuming they get through North Catholic. Again, I don't know if there's a team in Class 4A left, save for last year's 3A state champ Devon Prep, who has the depth that Prep does. I just don't know if there is.
Yeah, and I mean, going back to what you said, Jeremy played under or coached with Penn State Barron. I mean, he learned from, I think, in my opinion, one of the best coach in this area, Dave Nyland.
Yeah.
So great experience there, and he's got a great team. I can recall last year, Erie High, we were very good. No doubt, but I was scared of Prep. I thought Michael Thompson was a great player. Marachi's a great player. Spencer Kane shooting, and they have all those guys back. All those people, all those players, all those pieces are a year older, more mature. And as a coach, when you get all your players back, you get to just pick up where you left off from last year. So some of the fundamentals of your offense and your defensive scheme, you don't have to reteach. You can review them quickly. You can really move on and start to do some upper level things that you weren't able to do the year before, and it takes your team to a whole new level. So having that consistency of those players returning is such a big deal.
It's important, I think, too, guys, that we talk about the team that's also in the 4A bracket as well, and Sharon, and what would be a rematch of the District 10 championship. It's so funny. We've talked in the last two episodes about would we get an all District 10 final, and this is the one shot that we have left at that, and both teams are a game away. Nick and I, we were talking before the show, and it's so fascinating who Sharon plays. This is the Berks Catholic team. Nick, you've got a really good stat on this squad, the champions out of District 3. But the stat you're about to give would lead me to believe that Sharon's got a really good shot in this game, not knowing much about Berks Catholic. But I think they match up well. And you were referencing something that you think is really intriguing in Berks Catholic that Sharon might be able to exploit.
Yeah, I think if you look at the offensive side of the ball first with Berks Catholic, I mean, they've put up 79. They've never put up more than 79 points, but it's their defense that's played really well. There's only 2 games this year that they have let up more than 60 points. So they play, I think, again, I'm box score watching here at this point, but from what I've been able to pull from them today is that they play a really, really dominant defensive game. But then you turn around and look at Sharon, and I think Sharon's strength is the offensive side of the ball. They're able to put up 68 points a game, but they're no slouch to being able to put up 70 and 80. So I think they're going to need to put up 70 to win this game. But I think that given the strength of Sharon's offense, I think they have a good shot to kind of overcome that maybe defensive advantage that Berks Catholic holds.
But Isaac, are you going to play the clip from when we talked about the District 10 brackets, right?
You mean this one?
I'm going to follow my gut on this one, and I'm going Harbor Creek.
TK, what say you?
Well, I don't know what he ate, but his gut's telling him wrong. No, I was thinking of the clip back when we talked about the 4A District 10 bracket, and I wanted Sharon to be the number 1 seed, right? Before I remembered
this one was better. 4A. This one was better.
I play that clip. That's my morning motivation. I play that clip every morning.
That is a much better clip, but I've loved Sharon all year. We talked weeks ago. We talked about the strength of schedule that they played throughout the regular season. Them sweeping Hickory, right? They've been great, and they were my favorite out of 4A. Like I said, except for the fact that I forgot Prep was 4A. But I can totally see that coming up, right? The two of them playing. Great point there on their offense, right? They are an offensive-driven team. They get the ball, they push. They have a lot of athleticism. So I can definitely see them rolling. I wouldn't be surprised, and I'm certainly rooting for both District 10.
Yeah, and again, it would be a wonderful semifinal, and we are on I'd love to bring up the clip that I made, probably in the comment that I made, probably in the same episode when we were talking about what do we get an all District 10 semifinal. And I said, if that's going to happen, it's also likely that we're going to probably see a rematch between a District 10 team and Devon Prep in the 4A final. Devon Prep, of course, beat Franklin last year to win the 3A boys title. They're sitting at the top of the bracket right now in 4A. We could be going at a very similar parallel line right now to what we saw last year in 3A, and that would be a ton of fun. I think Cathedral Prep and Sharon would be a wonderful semifinal matchup. I think it'd be a lot closer than what the D10 championship was, and Sharon scored points in that game. They just couldn't stop Prep offensively. So it'll be a really exciting matchup for both of these teams. 6 o'clock and 7 o'clock on Friday are the games between Cathedral Prep and North Catholic, and then Sharon and Berks Catholic. Winner of those two games are going to face each other, and I think we're going to get at least one and hopefully two in the PIAA state semifinals. Speaking of semis, how about McDowell, man? And TK, I know that you coached against them a bunch, but they suddenly now, we talk about great defense with Prep. This McDowell defense figured something out against Alderdice, and it has just worked for Kevin O'Connor's squad. They hold their Wilson opponent to just 46 points in what was a 4-point victory, but the game really wasn't, I don't think, as close as what the score would indicate. They have now in 2 state playoff games, 3 if you consider the Alderdice, I guess 4 if you consider the Alderdice and State College games. 40 and 46 are the 2 official state playoff games that they've held their opponents to. TK, you've now seen this defense a few times, and even this year not coaching against them. Is this the best Kevin O'Connor defense that we have seen, or at least you have seen in your time?
Probably. They've had some really good matchups so far this year in the playoffs that fit their size and their athleticism. And like we talked about recently is the seniors on that team, the leadership roles that they've taken, and everybody's buying in. They're playing so hard right now. There's nothing better than having seniors in the playoffs. You're going to get maximum effort every time they step on the floor, and hopefully not worrying about anything else besides the next play. But yeah, there's not a lot of crazy schemes in their defense. They're just playing hard. They're getting the 50-50 balls, and they're making the offense react to them as opposed to the other way around.
I mean, it is the District 10 defense, right? I mean, this is the bully ball that we always talk about, and I think there's no team that's exemplified it more this year than McDowell, and now they're showing it in the playoffs against, a Whippeal team in the first round in Pittsburgh Central Catholic, and now Wilson, who had scored the ball a little bit this season. They're just punching teams in the mouth.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, the final score, 50-46, is a lot closer than this game actually was. I mean, it wasn't until the fourth quarter where Wilson put up 25 and started to make it look a little closer, maybe making McDowell sweat it out a little bit. But I think by the time that they were there, McDowell's defense was already in place. So yes, I agree with what both of you were saying. I think this is an incredible defensive team, but man, Upper St. Clair is scary. This is a team that I think I looked it up earlier. Max Prep is fifth in the state. They are a powerhouse team every year, 25-2 overall, 13-1 in conference. They haven't really had too many close games. There's my Wi-Fi is slowing me up here on my schedule, but they're blowing people out 78-22, 62-32. So I love this McDowell team, both sides of the ball. I've really I maybe was down on them earlier on, but I really became a fan later in the season. This defense is going to have to be lights out if they want to take down Upper St. Clair. I think they can do it, but they're going to have to play a perfect game.
What's your take on this team, TK?
I think it might be a savior in disguise, so you don't have to play Roman Catholic, right?
Oh yeah,
yeah, they've been steamrolling teams.
But you don't want to take anything away from Upper St. Clair. I mean, they have the Robbins brothers, right? Tyler's going to Miami of Ohio. He's a Division I player. He's listed anywhere from 6'9" to 6'10". He's a big kid that can score inside. He blocks shots. He gets rebounds. He controls the game from that aspect. His brother's on the team too, who's just a sophomore, who they think is even more talented, and he's 6'7". So McDowell's going to really see some 6A size right now, which they haven't seen all year. You've seen some teams play zone against this Upper St. Clair to try to stop the bigs. And they tried that in the championship game against, I believe, Newcastle, and Upper St. Clair comes out and hits 5 threes in the first couple minutes of the game. They got 3 really good guards that can shoot it as well. So it's really tough to go zone against them. It's really hard to go man because they're so big inside. So this is a really tall feat. It's going to be really tough matchups. You got Stephen Porter, who's definitely a strong kid inside, but his size is going to be really limited with somebody that's 6'9", 6'7", that's around him. I remember telling my kids at Erie High all the time, baby's going to pump fake. He's going to pump fake. He's so strong inside. Well, these guys don't have to worry about going up for pump fakes because they're 6'9". They're just going to stand there. So you're going to have to see some different styles of offense, probably passing it outside a little bit. Hopefully the McDowell kids are really hitting their shots, because when it comes down to any playoff game at this point, you got to make shots.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing is that the defense has to be really good at half court, and you can't get in foul trouble, especially Baby Porter and Blaze Myers, because you don't have the size advantage. And the second those two guys get out of the game, then you're really in trouble in the inside. Great thing for McDowell, to your point, TK, they have the guys who can shoot the ball from the outside, whether it's Kramer or Fernazzo or Marsh or, you name it, but they're all going to have to be on their game. That'll be a huge game. And yeah, the winner's going to probably play Father Judge, who is the freaking 3 seed out of District 12, to give you an idea of how ridiculous Father Judge and Emotep Charter are out of District 12. But that game's going to come up on Saturday. Want to touch on, before we let you go, TK, the team that we're focusing on the girls' side in Cathedral Prep. And we've been saying all year, maybe it's, to Doug Chusey's standards, a bit of a down season. Maybe they're not at their best. Maybe they don't have the roster that they've had. And yet here they are, 2 wins away from another state final. Ho-hum, it happens every year. And it shouldn't be downplayed with how great of the team that they are. They get Peters Township, the Whitfield champ, coming up Saturday at 2:30. What do we make of this Rambler team, TK? Evidently, obviously, they're back to where they normally are. How far do you think they can go?
Well, sorry, Doug, Tommy Laird. I think it's done right here. You're coming up against a Peters Township team that is loaded, right? Natalie Wetzel is in the top 100 for ESPN. She's going to not Miami of Ohio. She's going to the U, right? She can score the ball. Right? She can score the ball, and she's going to be really tough to guard. She's 6'3" forward with a lot of athleticism, right? Okay, you handle her a little bit, and what does Peters Township have to go with it? Well, just 2 freshmen, right? Jordan Welsh and Taylor McCullough. They're both Division I scholarship athletes already. Got offers at the Division I level. So you got 3 Division I girls on this floor for Peters Township. So we're going to see some unbelievable talent there. The prep girls really have to come up with a defensive plan that can slow those athletes down. They have a lot of options on there, so it's going to have to see some really good team defense out of the Ramblers. I know that sometimes they struggle to score, but they're going to have to really focus on the defensive end and probably slow this game down into a low number if they want to stay in it.
Tell you what, Nick, we've talked a lot on this podcast about Michaela Presser-Palmer and how she has individually taken over games and a difficult end of their season. But I think Addie Beal is going to have to play the best game of her career if Prep's going to want to have an opportunity to win this game. Obviously, she doesn't have the size advantage, as TK mentioned, inside. But I think she is a player that if she gets hot, she can keep a team in a game. And again, you never rule out Doug Chusey's team. I just think that Addie's going to have an unbelievable game for Prep to be successful, considering, again, the size and really the athleticism that Peters Township has. Now, I will say this. I don't think anybody gave Cathedral Prep a chance to stay close in the state championship last game, and they were within 2 points down the stretch. So, again, you never know, but I'm with TK, Nick. I think Addie Beal is going to have a heck of a game, and even that, I'm not sure, if that will be enough, but I guess time will tell.
Well, I got a gut feeling about this. No, I'm just kidding. I'm 100%. I agree with you guys 100%. I mean, the thing about Addie Beal is she's shown that she can do it, right? I mean, even as recent as the game against Middletown, where she puts up 29, she's 8 from 10 from the free throw line, she's driving in the paint. She can have that game, but I think she's going to need some support. It's unfortunate, what happened with Northwestern and Michaela Presser-Palmer, but we kind of talked about if you slow down MPP, the team kind of slows down, and that can't happen with Cathedral Prep. If Peters Township comes out and singles out Addie Beal, they're going to need some other people to step up and win this game. So I think it's going to be twofold. I think, yes, Addie Beal is going to have one of the best games she's ever played, but I think the team is going to have to step up around her because Peters Township, like Tom said, is no slouch.
Yeah, they're loaded, right?
Go ahead, TK.
They're loaded, and who's going to step up and make plays, right? And you've got some people on there. Grace Orlando hit a couple threes in one of their playoff games. You got Shauna Thrower, who's a heck of a player that can make some plays as well. You need one, probably 2 or 3 girls to really step up because, they scouted Prep. They know that Addie Bill's a scorer on there, so they're going to really focus on that and try to take that away, and they're going to want other players to beat them. And, hey, it's a game. Somebody can step up and make a difference, and you never know.
Yeah, you never know. It's state playoffs. It's March. There's madness. By the way, shout out Tricia Cullett, former Toledo head coach, who's now the head coach at Miami down at the U. So all those games Friday and Saturday. Hopefully, again, we see a bunch of District 10 teams in the state semifinals. It'd be great for us. It'd be great for business. And one way or another, we wish all the teams good luck heading in to this weekend. TK, we're going to let you rest up because we got a busy week coming up next week with everything going on. But as always, we appreciate you joining us, man, and can't wait to see you back here again.
Thanks, guys.
See you, brother.
All right, Tom Koval, former District 10 championship winning coach, previewing the state playoff games for us. We're going to get to Wayne Bradford in just 1 second. Before we do, though, as always, our show on the Gem City Sports Podcast Network brought to you by Rebish Investments, keeping financial guidance simple. If you want more info, head to their website, www.rebishinvestments.com, or you can simply call 814-734-3433. Again, 814-734-3433 to learn more. Look who's back.
There he is. There he is.
The coach himself, Wayne Bradford, has rejoined us on the podcast. You all thought he was gone. Oh, no. He hasn't moved down south just yet. Good to see you back, my friend. How you been?
You as well. Been good. Glad to see everybody. So welcome to Football Talk.
Seriously.
And finally, football talk is ramped up. We had the, what everyone calls the non-playing season, which there's never any shortage of action in the NFL, but you kind of have that lull after the big game. And, you wait a couple of weeks and then you wait for free agency season, but we didn't really wait for free agency season. Chaos and stuff happened at the beginning and really before that. And Wayne's Seattle Seahawks have a new quarterback. Everything's all right in the world. We're going to talk about the Steelers, Bills, and Browns, but I got to ask you, Wayne, what do you make of the Sam Darnold signing?
I like it because you and I talk about matching a coordinator with a quarterback. So not that I think Sam Darnold is a Super Bowl winning quarterback, but I think if you match philosophy, and Mike McDonald's gonna build a Raven-esque team over there, play great defense, run the football, play action. So I think it aligns with what they want to do as an entire team, which I think is important.
And that really started the quarterback carousel, if you will, a carousel that still has not stopped going yet. And we're going to get to that in just a minute here because man, there are still some teams that are in search of a quarterback, or at least it seems that way. And one of the teams that we're going to talk about and lead off with is that team. So we are bringing back Overreactions. I've got a bunch of topics. Wayne and Nick are going to react and talk about them. And we're going to see just how right I am in the coming weeks. By the way, Wayne Bradford's overreaction on New Year's Day, we thought was close to happening, Wayne, but he hoodwinked all of us, Myles Garrett. We're going to get to him in just a moment. But let's start with the Pittsburgh Steelers, really the only team in the NFL outside of maybe Minnesota or a couple of others that still don't have a quarterback as of yet. Russell Wilson is still not signed. We don't know if he's going to be on the team. He's going to visit with the Browns, reportedly coming up this week. Justin Fields is a New York Jet. And there's really nobody else that's in contention besides Mason Rudolph, who just signed recently with Pittsburgh. So I start with this, gentleman. The NFL draft is coming up in about a month and a half. There are going to be teams that trade down. There's going to be teams that trade up. One of those teams that trade up will be Pittsburgh because they are trading up to draft a quarterback in the first round of the draft.
Oh, I hope not.
I didn't say that I wanted them to. I just said that they're going to.
Oh gosh. I don't think that is an overreaction, and I don't think I don't imagine them jumping up to 1 or 2 for a guy like Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders. If Shedeur Sanders drops, past 10, I could see them maybe trying to put a package for them. Tomlin's the kind of guy that's like, I can handle him. I can handle the personality. But I don't see them going up that high. I could see them moving up several, to go get a guy like Jackson Dart. When you read beat reporters coming out of Pittsburgh, the Steelers seem to love Jackson Dart and really like what he could bring to the team. So I think he would be there at 21. I think is where the Steelers draft this year. But I could also see them pulling a move to trade up. So I will say not an overreaction, unfortunately.
Yeah, I don't know. It's very interesting. You still could sign Wilson, and you have Rudolph there. You have Metcalf, so you have the Wilson Seattle Metcalf, there. Again, go back to your coordinator, right? Arthur Smith. Who's your drop back under center guy? Mm-hmm. And we talk about this all the time, but there aren't enough of those guys being developed in college, to come out in the NFL. I still think there's potential, for a big trade move by Pittsburgh. I'm not sold that they don't go somewhere. I still could see Aaron Rodgers in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Let him get cut, let everything settle out, and get him on the cheap if he wants to go for one more year.
Well, it's funny you bring that up, Wayne, because again, I'm not a quarterback whisperer here, but if my first overreaction comes to pass, which I have to assume all of them do, right? Because otherwise, why would we be doing this thing? Then Pittsburgh does trade up to draft a quarterback. I think, by the way, if the draft were tomorrow, I don't think that they would, but we all know that there's 1 or 2 quarterbacks every year that, they have their pro day, they get through the combine, and everybody absolutely loves them. And so I think it's a Jackson Dart, maybe even a Quinn Ewers, if that's, if he really performs well. I think Pittsburgh would get, misty-eyed with and potentially trade up. But let's assume they draft a quarterback. I'm not sure that you would want that quarterback to have Aaron Rodgers as your mentor with a potential 1-year contract, and he's old and he's rigid, and you don't really want him there. So who better to train people up than a journeyman himself? That's right, folks. It ain't a fluke. It's not the memes out there are going to become reality. Your starting quarterback in week 1 for the Pittsburgh Steelers is going to be Mason Rudolph.
And I like Mason Rudolph. I liked him at Oklahoma State. I think he has a live arm. He can throw the ball deep. It's a good fit for Metcalf. I think Mason Rudolph, could be a good quarterback in the NFL. If Sam Darnold can make it to the playoffs and you're in the right system, why can't Mason Rudolph?
I think my retort to that would be Sam Darnold had Kevin O'Connell. I'm not sure Mike Tomlin is a quarterback guru. That would be my only thing. I think Mason Rudolph would be great.
Yeah, but it's a quarterback-friendly offense, right? I don't he doesn't. But I don't mean like efficiency-wise. I mean safety-wise, because they're handing the ball off, they're dumping the ball off. He's not going to put up numbers. Whoever's starting a quarterback is not going to put up numbers. But quarterback-friendly offense in terms of like, Rudolph will limit the interceptions. He's not. I mean, he's apparently. I saw a statistic earlier that he has the most passes over 60 yards in the last 10 years as a Steeler. The most Steelers quarterback with most passes over 60 yards in less than a year. So he's got an arm. He can put the ball, and you're going to need somebody that can. You bring a guy like DK and Pickens. Both are downfield outside runners. You're going to need somebody who's got that arm. I think there is a really good chance he is the week 1 starter. I think Rodgers ends up retiring. I think this is all just Rodgers playing song. I mean, you saw the pictures of him holding a blanket, walking the beach. It's like he is a soap opera, right? So I think he's going to end up on McAfee. And I think he's going to walk away. That's fine for me as a Steelers fan. So you think, okay, Russ makes sense. I think that bridge is burned. I don't know that Russ is coming back to Pittsburgh. So you look at the best available quarterbacks that are out there. It's slim pickings at this point. I mean, you know what? Let's get crazy. Let's make Mason Rudolph the week 1 starter and Jameis Winston backing him up, and let's just see who can sling the ball farther by the end of the year.
Well, and the funny thing is I think just from a cap standpoint, Aaron Rodgers reportedly wants a 2-year deal, $40 to $45 million a year. I don't think any of us on this panel think that at this point in his career he could do more than what Mason Rudolph can do. So in that case, just take the cheaper option. Yep. Essentially, you build a bridge in extension to what you did last season, and you get a rookie quarterback in there to potentially make this all work, and you try to do the Kenny Pickett experiment over again. I just don't think right now there's anybody out there, save for Russell Wilson, that is potentially better. And so, you drag your feet again, you're late to the party, and this is the problem. You're going to sense a theme with the Pittsburgh Steelers here. I don't mean to be pessimistic, Peggy. Again, I root for him, but I have not liked what I've seen. I like the DK Metcalf trade. Only problem is there's no one to throw him the darn football. So neither DK Metcalf nor George Pickens is going to have 1,000 yards this season for Pittsburgh. I just don't know who's throwing him the football.
I'll jump in. And, if you look at DK statistically the last 5 years, my big thing with him at Seattle is he becomes invisible, when you need him. Tyler Lockett was still the number 1 receiver. Jackson Smith and Gobo had gone from 3 to 1A. It was the Lockett, Smith, and either Seattle didn't use him the way they should. I don't see why teams aren't taking DK Metcalf and putting him as a flex tight end like a Kelsey. Why can't Metcalf go in as that number 3 guy and work up the field against a linebacker? That's where I would see him, in the slot, number 3 receiver, 6'4", 230 pounds. But in terms of his productivity, and then later in his career there in Seattle, I'm not sure I like his attitude either.
Yeah. Let him play that Deebo Samuel role. Where they can hand the ball off to him, put him in tight. I like that a lot. I think that is not an overreaction, and I think it's a couple of reasons why. One, this is not a pass-friendly offense, right? So the passing volume is going to be limited. If you have both DK and Pickens on the outside, it's going to be throw it up to whoever's open. So I think they're going to be very split in terms of target distribution. Then you have, Freiermuth and Washington. They're going to run a lot of 2 tight end sets again. And then, maybe they draft Egbuka from Ohio State, who I think they're going to end up with in the first round. Then I think there's too many mouths to feed in a low passing volume offense. So not an overreaction. I don't think either one hit over 1,000 yards. It doesn't matter if it's Aaron Rodgers. It doesn't matter if it's Russell Wilson. At this point, it's just the way the offense is run. They won't hit that.
Problem too is Arthur Smith is a run-first offense, and a run-first offense that likes to run outside the numbers. And you have 2 receivers that are down the field, non-blocking receivers. And so I think the problem that you run into is, to your point, Nick, if you're going to run the football, you don't have receivers that can block. You have to put 2 tight ends on the field. If you put 2 tight ends on the field, DK and GP don't have enough space to be able to make anything happen. And so you're stuck – with either determining whether you want to abandon the run or whether you want to stick to the run and not use your receiver. So I think it could be a big problem. And again, Najee Harris is no longer with Pittsburgh. I'm not saying he was a standout running back, but at least he could try to get downhill. Jalen Warren isn't that kind of a back. So they're going to need to potentially make an offensive coordinator switch too at some point. I didn't have that on Overreaction Monday, but they may have to. Speaking of running game, let's transfer to the Buffalo Bills. We made a couple of interesting signings. Going to get to the Josh Allen extension in a second, but I want to start with a guy who I personally think deserves a massive extension. Whether he's going to get one or not, who knows? I think James Cook's been the underrated part of this Buffalo Bills team the last couple of years. And I look at Pittsburgh with their lack of running, and I look at Cleveland. We don't know if Nick Chubb's coming back. James Cook is going to have another breakout year. In fact, I think he'll have more combined rushing yards this year than both the Pittsburgh Steelers and Cleveland Browns running back one combined.
I like it. I like it. I think that Buffalo has finally, settled in that the way to be successful is to, run the football, give Josh some protection, take care of that body a little bit, sign a long-term contract, get rid of the football. I think he got rid of it out of his hand much quicker. Lots of bubble screens, throws into the flat right now, and not having a go-to guy to throw it to 100 times, but throw it 20 here, 20 here, 20 here, 20 here. I think they'll really, really lean on the running game again, and play great defense, and that's the formula they want to win with.
Just rushing yards, right?
Just rushing yards.
Yep. Overreaction. Only because I think, and I love James Cook. I'm with you. I think he is going to have a great year this year. But given the rushing of Josh Allen, you're capping his potential rush yards. Plus, they like to use James Cook a lot out of the backfield as a receiver. So I think he's going to have more total yards than both Pittsburgh and Cleveland combined. But we just said this a little bit ago. Pittsburgh is a run-first option, or a run-first offense. Even if they go into the season with Jalen Warren, which I really like, and I think they will, I think that just the pure volume of Pittsburgh with Jalen Warren, I think will end up having more rush yards than James Cook by the end of the year.
My thing, though, I think, too, you have to think about I think it's the same with Arthur Smith. You don't necessarily hear this and see this unless you dive into the numbers, that Joe Brady also was a run-first offensive coordinator. And I think we saw this past year with Buffalo, is that he likes to spread the field, get the football to James Cook however you can. And we saw they were their most successful when Cook was able to get near or outside the hash marks and run the football for 4 or 5 yards. So, again, I'm not saying with age Josh Allen's going to stop running. I think he'll run until his legs die out. But I really do think James Cook is due for a big year. And even if he gets 1,200, which isn't out of the question, I just don't know who on Pittsburgh or Cleveland's roster is going to get to 600 each. I think you're going to have a big problem, especially with Jalen Warren and the offensive line for Pittsburgh that seemingly has regressed from what it was supposed to be at the beginning of the year. All right, let's talk about the man who signed the big extension. Josh Allen, now quarterback for the Bills through 2030, $330 million, and he could have made $60 million a year, but he said he didn't need the $5 million. He's got plenty already. So here's my thing with Josh Allen. It's been the same we say every single year. This team is close. They can't get over the hump. But the Chiefs are vulnerable, right? They lost the Super Bowl. They've lost some key pieces. This is the year to maybe get them. If Josh Allen doesn't win the Super Bowl this year, he's not going to win it during his contract extension. This is the year.
I disagree. Overreaction. Because I think that I think the contract is chess, not checkers. Because you get this deal done now. He had 4 years left on his deal. Right now, it looks huge. In 2 years, this is a team-friendly deal. By the time the cap increases, by the time other quarterback deals come through, I think this is Brandon Beane saying, okay, hey, let's get on top of this now. Let's pay our quarterback. Let's lock him up for the next 6 years. Will they win in the next 2? No, I don't think so. I think they have a lot of holes to fill. They're doing the best they can. They didn't learn from Von Miller, the Von Miller experiment. They had to go sign Joey Bosa and Larry Ogunjobi. So, no, I don't think that they're going to win the Super Bowl in the next couple of years. However, by the time you get into, like I said, year 3, year 4, year 5 of this deal, the cap has gone through the roof even more. They have the cap to go out and spend spend money on some people. I do think they will win a Super Bowl by the end of his contract.
Yeah, I would agree. I think Andy Reid's going to be closer to retirement than people think. He might go another year or two. Um, I don't think there are, marquee teams outside of Kansas City. And I think Kansas City, um, you know, certainly the way that Philadelphia played them, people will emulate that. So I think people will catch up from that standpoint. And so I think the window is, to Nick's point, open, for another 5 or 6 years. So I don't think that it's limited to the next year or two.
And we'll see. I just wonder how long Reed has left, and I also too wonder if you're Kansas City. I think the Chiefs make a big splash in the draft, and again, keep in mind too, your Ravens, Wayne, are still, I think, for the next 5 to 7 years, right in the mix. Cincinnati's going to be better, assuming that Chase comes back. I just think, the AFC, it's not easy to get to the championship game every single year. So,
well, you have Houston and the Chargers, who
right.
Yeah,
are right on
Chargers
everybody's heels now, and don't forget about Denver. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, you got some young guns, in the AFC.
I think Brandon Beane's loading up. They've collected a lot of draft picks recently as well. I wouldn't be surprised to see them finally load up, trade up in the draft above Kansas City instead of with Kansas City for this time around.
Yeah, they're not making that mistake again. They made it twice already.
They've made it like 6 times by this point.
Yeah, I was gonna say they've made it one too many times. I'm going to go on a limb for this next overreaction topic because I have a feeling, and this is just it's more a hunch than the stats and the numbers. I think the Joey Bosa signing is going to fly under the radar. I think he's going to be top 5 in the league in sacks this season. I think he could really make an impact for Buffalo's defensive line that really down the stretch wasn't that impressive.
I'd agree with you. I love it. I was hoping the Ravens would get one. I don't think there are enough premier edge rushers, especially in the AFC. When you add him to Rousseau and to the other guys that they have, we've talked about, them, being strong in the pass rush, but they also got Larry, right? Ogunjobi.
Yeah.
So they did get an interior guy. You don't underestimate the edge guys, especially now you have Justin Fields, who will be a perimeter threat at quarterback. Tua, you got the athletic quarterback Drake May at New England. That's a division now where you have some athletic quarterbacks that you better have some edge rushers.
I love Joey Bosa, the player. He's one of my favorite players to watch, and he has been for a while. I'm with Coach, where I'm a fan of the Chargers. I think that I like what they're doing. So I've watched them for a long time over the last few years. I'm a big Justin Herbert fan. I just think between the injuries and father time, even if he stays healthy, I don't know that he reaches top 5. I mean, you're thinking off the top of my head, you're having Myles Garrett, TJ Watt, Hendrickson
TJ
will end up somewhere.
Done.
Oh, that's
done.
Overreaction.
As a top 5 pass rusher, I'm saying.
No, I would agree with. I mean, yes, I think you can make the same case for TJ Watt. The injuries have piled up. They don't have anybody to kind of give him space because he's getting double teamed, triple teamed. Anyway, overreaction. I just think that Joey Bosa, I was kidding about the Von Miller thing. He's going to be an impact player this year. I don't think he's going to play 100% of the snaps. I don't think he's going to play up to that standard. I think he's going to be a rotational guy with Rousseau, Ogunjobi. So I don't think he does make top 5. Top 10, I would give you, but I don't think top 5.
Yeah, we'll see. Their defensive line needs to be better. I think Ogunjobi really helps. We'll see how Rousseau and Epinesa play this year in the rotational game. But again, they got to have someone to make an impact. It seemed like at the beginning of the year they were figuring out turning the corner, and then the last 6-7 weeks of the season they couldn't get any pressure on Mahomes, and that's why, in my view, they lost the AFC Championship game. All right, now to the Browns. God, where do we start? So I'm going to view this topic from a different angle. I actually changed it while we were talking about the Steelers because my original topic was that Myles Garrett made a mistake re-signing with the Browns, but that's too easy. I think that is too easy of a topic for me to make. So I'm viewing it from the NFL's lens. No owner in the league was happy when Cleveland signed Deshaun Watson to the deal they signed him because it reset things for quarterbacks. It reset essentially everything that we knew about signing players, and it for a bit screwed the NFL when it came to signing quarterbacks. And now, with a $40 million extension, the Browns have screwed the non-quarterback great player market by resetting that bar. So, from an NFL's perspective, and from everyone who's not a Browns fan, Cleveland made a mistake pursuing a re-signing of Myles Garrett.
Yes, absolutely, not an overreaction, because
they should have traded him.
They should have traded him. Absolutely, they should have traded him. And I think you know why they kept him? They kept him to put butts in seats. They kept him to sell tickets because he's everybody in Cleveland's favorite player because nobody likes the quarterback. But I think they made a mistake from a team building perspective. I think everything that you said is 100% right, but I think the biggest mistake they made was a team building perspective. We just talked about all these great AFC teams. We talked about Baltimore. We talked about Buffalo. We talked about the Chargers. We didn't even mention the Texans. There's a lot of really good AFC teams. There is a very, very slim chance that Cleveland is competitive this year, let alone the next three. So I think absolutely they made a mistake because they could have got, and maybe they didn't. Maybe that's why he ended up re-signing. But they should have been able to get an absolute haul for this guy and just commit to the rebuild. They are not going to compete. You're wasting this guy's career. Obviously, Garrett doesn't care. So all it is a way to get butts in seats. Cleveland absolutely made a mistake. They should have just committed to the rebuild. We screwed this up. Get rid of Myles Garrett. Get rid of Watson. Collect some picks. Get your quarterback this year, and start the clock over.
Yeah, the Browns are the Browns. I would say, Isaac, that the Raiders screwed the NFL because Crosby went first. So yeah. Myles and his agent were smart to go after Crosby, right? So, Crosby goes with what, 96 million and 30 something guaranteed or whatever, 96 million guaranteed. When you talk about an aging guy who, has, injuries and so forth. It's really out of control what they did. And yes, I think that, Cleveland is Cleveland, so it's not a mistake. It's just another day in Cleveland. You know what I mean? So they did what they did what they do.
They need somebody to put on those Brook Park banners. That's what.
Which is amazing. But the amount of money that non-quarterbacks are getting now, the amount of money that bad quarterbacks are getting, right?
Oh yeah.
Darnold, Pickett, Rudolph, Daniel Jones. I think we could go out, the three of us, and go for an NFL team and hand it off 40 times and win more games than those guys, and it wouldn't cost that much. And we'd be excited to be in the huddle. All right, here we go. I'm going to turn around and hand it off to you. All right.
I'd take 10% of what Myles' new contract is, man. Yeah, I'd take
we're not going to throw an interception. We're going to punt it. We're going to play defense. It'll work itself out.
Sweetheart, we got a reservation for Bali, Indonesia coming up next week. Let's go.
Let's go.
I'll take that $5 million that Alan left on the table.
Yeah.
Look, it's so obvious, right? We talked it all off season and before the season even ended that Jimmy Haslam and Andrew Berry are swimming up a creek without a paddle. Well, now they just destroyed the lonely life preserver that they have. And I think you look at this team, and the crazy thing about it is that 2 years ago they were in the playoffs. That to me is what is amazing about this team, is that they were right there. They had everything lined up for them. And one decision, I remember a couple episodes ago, I brought up that, okay, Deshaun Watson cost them 3 picks plus guaranteed money, plus, the offensive line of Amari Cooper, yada, yada, yada. Well, it probably also cost them the rest of their salary cap because now they feel like they have to overcompensate by signing guys who, are they worth the money? Maybe, but is it really worthwhile? And the reason that I bring up the NFL part and for other teams is because now I understand the Raiders did it first, but now the market is the market. And so if you're a team like Pittsburgh, you're not re-signing TJ Watt. Why the heck would you? He's going to demand $45 million a year, and he's getting up there in age. You trade him, I think, in my view, at least in the middle of the season. And so now, it's going to get to a point, guys, where we've got the franchise tag. Well, there's going to have to be a luxury tag where you just take one player and their salary doesn't count toward the cap. Because otherwise, you're going to have teams that have 2 or 3 players counting at 50% of the cap. I mean, this is getting ridiculous.
Well, and I think you do. That's typically what the quarterback is usually 20% of your cap hit, and I think the cap just keeps going up and up and up and up and up and up and up. So I think to that point, I think it's going to keep going. But I mean, Cleveland is just in a tough spot, right? I mean, they're spending money and all. Look at the team build perspective, right? You have an offense in Jerry Jeudy, in Elijah Moore. What we don't really know what's happening. Yeah, we don't really know what's happening in the running back room right now. And then there's red flags with the quarterback situation because they're saying they're all in on Deshaun Watson, but then they go and trade for Super Bowl winner Kenny Pickett, and then they come back and now they're potentially looking at Russell Wilson like that. Why? If Watson is your guy, why are you bringing in 2 other high-valued, and to your point, Isaac, high-paying quarterbacks in Kenny Pickett and Russell Wilson if you're all in? So that the whole team build perspective doesn't make sense. Coach said it best. The Browns are the Browns, and they're going to keep browning.
Yeah, I mean, week 1, Kenny Pickett, Mason Rudolph.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say versus Mason
Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson. That's your NFC North.
Stick a fork in us.
I mean,
who'd have thought?
Cleveland, didn't you play against Kenny Pickett? Don't you know what he can do? You played against him. I mean,
I'll tell you what, man. You know what? Honestly,
you can't make this stuff up.
No.
Honestly, that should be the week 1 Sunday night game. Kenny Pickett versus Mason Rudolph.
Yes.
Week 1. I mean, it's just it's
and they should play the first half in Pittsburgh and then drive and play the second half in Cleveland.
The driving snowstorm. It wouldn't matter. There wouldn't be any points scored anyway. The only thing that you'd get is a couple of sacks from Miles and then pretending to dribble through his legs with a basketball. Man, Cleveland, Pittsburgh are cooked, man. Your Ravens are going to win the division for the next 14 years in a row, I'm convinced.
I don't know. Although we have, if you want to flip the script, I really like what Baltimore's done in terms of patience. The exact opposite of you. They have let the market be the market, and they have 4 compensatory picks, right?
Yep.
So they do that every year.
My son is freaking out, texting me. Nick is texting me. What are we going to do? Sit around? What are we going to do? Sit around? I'm like, yeah, sit around. Let everybody spend all their money, and, come up with, these compensatory picks and find these diamonds in the rough, develop them. That's what you have to do. To your point, Nick, if 2 players are going to take 50% of the cap, you have to come up with a creative way, to build your team. I don't think anybody would have said 3 or 4 years ago that Jalen Hurts is going to be in 3 Super Bowls in 4 years, that he is an elite quarterback. I think he is. I think he's a coach's son, but the way that Philadelphia has built their foundation is on both fronts. Dominant offensive line, dominant defensive line. Where's everybody else trying to follow this formula? Because they bullied all the bullies. And you saw in the Super Bowl that it was hopefully we can say this on the air, a kicking, a butt kicking. But it was a dominant performance because of up front. And there aren't enough big guys inside either, but you see a few people trying to shore up some offensive tackles, a couple interior guys, but there aren't a whole lot of elite guys on the O-line and D-line getting passed around.
Yeah.
And I would say too, Wayne's point, save for maybe the 2020 Rams, what's the last team that won a Super Bowl by getting rid of picks and spending up all the way to the cap with megastars? You just don't see it. To your point, Philadelphia drafting and developed. New England for years didn't pay anybody, got scrubs off the street and used it through their quarterback and their drafting. Heck, Kansas City, they've had a new batch of receivers every single year that they've played. The Giants, when they won their 2 Super Bowls, and nobody knew the guys that they had except the guys that they had drafted and the people in that room. You can't win Super Bowls by going after all of these big name free agents and paying guys. You can pay some people, but when it gets to a point that you're looking at one or two players to just anchor your team down, it's not going to happen. And really, the draft be damned. It may not matter who Cleveland drafts, because in 3 or 4 years, they're going to be in the same position with the same guy. So, Abdul Carter, I'm so sorry. You're going to be in a really rough situation in a month and a half and should probably demand a trade instantaneously. But you don't have Archie Manning as your dad, so it probably won't work out as well for you. Anyway,
it's so confusing. It's so confusing.
I'll tell you what. We got a lot to happen until the draft, and the great thing about it is we've got more coming up next week on our show. If you missed it, by the way, Paul Adamczak in the Draft podcast last night came out with his first ever mock draft. So that is live on our YouTube page and all of our social media pages. Check that out. We're going to do our mock draft coming up later in April, so stay tuned for that. We're going to do a first-round mock draft ahead of our draft special. More details in the work on that as well. Wayne, it was good to see you, my friend.
Great to see you.
Cook up another cool trade for us.
You got it. I'll work on it. And best of luck to all the local teams in the high school basketball playoffs, the college basketball playoffs, Gannon, Edinburgh. And then just one final thing, tragically earlier this week, Pat Sytuck, who coached high school football in this area for 49 years, passed away on Monday. I was at the viewing tonight, so all our prayers and blessings to Leanne, his wife, and to Coach Sytuck and the prep family. I had the opportunity to work with him for 2 years, and just an incredible human being. So, the impacts he made, 45 years in the classroom and 49 years on the football field, God bless him.
Yeah, wonderful coach, even better human being. He will be missed. All right, we'll see you all next week. Our next show, Monday, 9 o'clock. Flagship City Sports Talk. We'll break down everything and all the other stuff that happens.
Hey, happy St. Patty's Day.
You're wearing the color, too.
I'm Italian. It's just another day for me.
That parade's happening downtown this year for the first time in a long time. People are pumped for it. Maybe we'll see you downtown as well. All right, everyone, enjoy your holiday. We'll see you Monday.